SDO Siargao, kalidad na edukasyon sa tanan panahon.
Good morning, fellow workers in the field of education. Welcome to this webinar series on Learning Resource Development Process hosted by the Division Learning Resource Management section. To start off, let's have the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, and this will be followed by a prayer via audio-visual presentation.
ang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyak ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di magtitindig. Luman ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
This time, we have with us the Chief of the Curriculum Implementation Division, Dr. Gemna G. Pobe, for an open remarks.
Hi, good morning everyone. I would like to presume that everybody are in the best of health. Today, we shall be tackling a much challenging issues which are not only pressing but a call of the time in this crisis of COVID-19 pandemic and pursuit of coping the standard of education curriculum activity. It's not only about us educators, but more to our end recipients and providing effective ways and means of education medium modules to our learners, that's the pupils and students. And because of the unique and extra mechanism of our educational tools, we need to expand our system's normal and regular mode of delivering basic education to our learners that despite the changes, the end result or output would still be the same. What I am talking about is on the blended education integrated in our educational medium of instruction. This is very taxing, but we need to make ourselves ready and coping to the mechanism which are about to implement the soonest. With this, may I then solicit from you to take active participation in the conceptualization of every aspect of our activity in order to come up with a collective and effective system and our module of education literacy program. To all of us, good luck to the new normal and anticipating a fruitful interaction. Welcome and God bless us all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We are thankful for the full support of our leaders. And now, we will hear another inspiring message from our very own Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Nelia S. Lomoxo.
Good morning, everyone. To all our prime movers, to all the participants, our invited speakers, a pleasant morning. And I'm happy to be with you in this opening program of this 3-day webinar workshop on learning resources development process. At the very outset, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude and convey my appreciation to our LRMDS staff of DepEd Siargao with the coordinator, Ma'am Evelyn Coro, our PDO2, Reggy, Asupre, the librarian 2, Dina Luxel Sulis, and of course, our division illustrator, Donnie Neer. You've been working so hard. I am happy with all these initiatives, most especially this 3-day webinar to capacitate all our teachers and all other participants. I too would like to acknowledge and express my gratitude to our invited speakers, Ms. Jerlyn Rabaka of Iswar School of Life. She is actually the administrator, and I remember she has been our speaker also in the workshop on how to prepare modules. Yes, that's right. And we also have another invited speaker who is a National Storybook winner, Miss Mariel Balakwit. Another invited speaker is Miss Genevieve Vercelis, an education program supervisor of Bayugan City. So I also thank the respective superintendents for allowing them to be part of this 3-day webinar. Of course, my gratitude also goes to our own supervisors. We have Dr. Rilin Rasa, Dr. Florangela Arcadio, and of course, Ma'am Sandra Luz Fernandez. This initiative is, of course, well appreciated. This is the call of the times, and I'm happy for this initiative because as we prepare for the opening of the school year 2020-2021 this coming August 24, we need to give time and focus on capacitating our teachers. So here we are, and I would be appealing sincerely to all the participants to give your time and listen intently to our speakers. And I believe there's also a workshop, so be keen on the workshop so that after this 3-day webinar, there will be clear outputs, tangible outputs that you will be able to produce. As the head of DepEd Siargao, I knew that everyone is suffering because of this national health crisis we are facing with the coronavirus pandemic. But as I have said many times, this should not dampen our spirits because in Siargao, I certainly believe that all members of our team has that strength and desire and fervent hope that we can tackle and we can hurdle all these challenges because our hearts are always full with passion to deliver quality education to all our learners in this part of the country. Siargao is known all over the world to be a paradise island. Let's all join hands to keep it that way. Despite the health crisis, let our learning under the new normal be still a paradise. As long as we educators, especially our teachers, our supervisors, and the school administrators will always give premium to the welfare and the bright future of our learners, nothing can stop us from that desire. So to one and all, congratulations for being a part of this 3-day webinar. Again, my thanks to the LRMS staff, to all our invited speakers, and I say this is indeed a very splendid initiative. Let's move forward, my beloved teammates of Siargao, and let us just stick to one another and keep it that way, that we are one happy, big, united family of DepEd Siargao. I am sure the Lord is smiling at us because all these things that we are doing is for the good and for the bright future of our beloved learners in this paradise island. God bless us all.
Salamat gajud ka radyo, ma'am. We are indeed inspired and be working on with a joyful heart. To give us the statement of purpose for these webinars, let's have Dr. Evelyn C. Coro.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this series of webinar workshop on learning resource development process. We would like to inform you that in the first plan, this activity is supposedly to be conducted in 3 consecutive days only. But in a consultative meeting done by the LR team, we realized that the 3-day workshop is not doable, especially so that presentations will be done virtually. Therefore, the 3 days become 6 days. The primary mandate of the Department of Education is to instill quality basic education to Filipino learners and to push front lines and discover new paths so that education can still continue everywhere, even at home. In full support to the mandate of the Department of Education, DepEd Siargao has designed a webinar series on learning resource development process under the care of the Learning Resource Management section and of course in coordination with the Curriculum Implementation Division starting this day, July 9, and this will end on July 16, 2020. We have 2 objectives for this webinar. The first one is to capacitate education program supervisors, district supervisors, school heads and teachers on LR development process. And the second one is to design or develop learning resources based on the essential learning competencies. Lectures and workshops will be done virtually, and participants are expected to submit their outputs online. Days 1 and 2 will have whole day lecture events, while for days 2 to 4, and this will be on July 10, 13, 14, 15, and 16, there will only have half-day lectures on specific topics. And in the afternoon, it is allotted for the workshop. We have invited speakers who are non-Deep Ed Siargao personnel. And one is a teacher from the Division of Agusan del Norte, who has been awarded as one of the Chidora Alonso Award on Storybook Writing National Competition. Another is an education program supervisor, the LRMDS manager of Bayugan City Division. And we have also invited an administrator from one of the private schools in our division. And of course, with us are our very own education program supervisors who will also serve as our facilitators. We are expecting everyone to please bear with us from the very start of this series of webinars up to the last day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for reminding us on those things. For us to be oriented on what to do for this event, please be reminded of the following. First, your attendance will be monitored by commenting on the chat box indicating your full name and school. Checking of attendance will be done before and after the presentation of every speaker. Wait for the attendance icon to pop up on the screen before commenting your full name and school. Second, outputs will be submitted online and this will serve as basis for your release of your e-certificates. Our first session this morning is on developing learning resources to be represented to us by our Division LRMS Manager, Dr. Evelyn C. Coro.
Good morning, everyone. This is Evelyn Coro, the Division LRMDS Focal Person of Deep Ed Siargao, and I will be presenting to you the first session of this series of webinar workshops on learning resource development process. In this session, we are guided by these two objectives. The first one is to explain with you the process of designing and developing learning resources. And the second one is to discuss the guidelines in developing learning resources. Now, when we say learning, it is a process of bringing changes in behavior of the learner through experience. And speaking of process, this means a procedure that will result to the acquisition of knowledge, skills, interests, attitudes, and others. And when we say resources, it is a source from which benefit is produced. Now, this is acquired to accomplish activity or to achieve the desired outcomes. So with this, we have the so-called learning resources, in which these are devices and procedures that would help us make teaching and learning more interesting, and it will become more stimulating, more reinforcing, and more effective. Now, learning resources can also be associated with teaching and learning materials, or we have the so-called TLMs, or the TLMs. And from this, we have the terms teaching materials and learning materials. Now, we would like to know the difference between teaching materials and learning materials. When we say teaching materials, these are the aids or the supports used by the facilitators to help them in facilitating their lesson effectively. In other words, these are the teaching materials used by the teachers. But when we say learning materials, these are the aids also, the supports used by the learners to help them effectively. So we will be helping them to understand the lesson effectively using these learning materials. And again, learning materials are for the learners to be used for them or to help them understand the lessons effectively. Now, both teaching and learning materials can be both, or this can also be made easily by both the facilitator or the learner. So, meaning the TLMs can be made by the learners, and this can also be made by the teachers. Now, bakit nga ba kailangan natin ang TLMs or teaching learning materials? Now, we have here purposes and importance of teaching learning materials or the learning resources. The first one is to make lessons interesting. And when we say interesting, that will stimulate, and it can be thought-provoking and exciting, motivating on the part of the learner. So that is making the lessons interesting using the teaching learning materials. Another is it will make learning easy. On the part of the learners, it will make learning easy for them, meaning mas mapadali ang pagkatuto ng mga mag-aaral because of the visual aids that they can see or the visual aids used by the teachers. And another thing is it will help learning. Kumbaga, what has been learned by the learners to remain in the minds of the learners for a longer time. And it is really true na kung mayroong makikita, mayroong nahahawakan ang mga mag-aaral, the learning that they have will stay longer in their minds, or it will be instilled in their minds. Then another is, it will help the facilitator to develop his or her lesson successfully and easily. Yes, it's really true. As teachers, if we will just keep on talking and talking without any visual aids, imagine what happened to your class. So this will help us, or the facilitators or the teachers, to deliver our lessons successfully. And of course, it can be easy for us to deliver it to our learners. Then another is it will enable the facilitator to express intended concepts. Kung ano yung gusto nating ipahiwatig. The concepts that we're going to drive out to our learners. And of course, it will be delivered properly to them because it will enable the facilitator to express concepts of learning effectively. Now, we have principles of learning resources, or we need to know the principles of learning resources. There are two principles that we're going to study or to discuss in this session. The first principle is the principle of selection, and the second one is the principle of utilization. Now, this principle of selection, of course, that includes appropriateness and wise selection of learning resources. Appropriate and wise selection of learning resources are required from the teacher's side, as these resources are helpful in achieving the teaching objectives. So as teachers, we must choose the correct learning resources because this will help us attain our teaching objectives. Now, when we teach, of course, we have the objectives in mind. And with this proper selection or appropriate or wise selection of learning resources that could help. Then we have the following principles that could help us select learning resources. So when we select learning resources, we need to consider the following principles. The first one is the principle of learner-centeredness. As teachers, we must bear in mind that whatever be our class activities, this must be learner-centered or nakatuon sa ating mag-aaral ang lahat ng mga ginagawa natin kasi sila po ang pinakasentro ng ating pagtuturo. So we must choose LRs which are learner-focused. Then we must also know that learning resources should suit on the following. It must be suited to the age of our learners, maturity, the motives, intellectual level, and social environment of the learners. So we notice that the LRs we have in school depends on the grade, it depends on the maturity level, the intellectual levels of our learners. And social environment, when we say social environment, that refers to the background and of course to the atmosphere. Now this shall also be considered in selecting the learning resources. So with this, we need to contextualize the LRs. We need to localize the LRs we got in order to suit with the learner's needs. Then another is the principle of interest and motivation. Learning resources must be interesting, of course. It must be attention-catching and motivating for the learners in order for them to get fully absorbed in learning. Kasi paano nila maintindihan kung lagi na lang tayong nagsasalita, that talk and chalk without the aids? So imagine what happened to your class. Now, pipiliin natin o kaya gagawa tayo ng LRs na nakakaaliw para makuha ang interes ng mga mag-aaral. And that makes the principle of interest and motivation. The third principle is the principle of educational value. Now, learning resources should recreate or provide variety in teaching learning situations. We have different teaching learning situations in our respective schools, even in the community. Now, they should not be employed for the name's sake alone. And one of the aspects for LRQA, or when we quality assure learning resources, is the educational soundness or its values. Now, LRs must be made to address varied teaching learning situations, and it must answer the learner's needs. Hindi yung gagawa at gagawa tayo ng learning resources na hindi naman natin alam or hindi, kumbaga, hindi kailangan ng mga learners. In here, we will consider multiple intelligences because our learners have individual differences. Then the next principle is the principle of realization of objectives. Learning resources must be capable and meaningful for the proper realization of teaching learning objectives. Again, going back to our classrooms, when we teach, we have objectives in mind. So when we make lesson plans, we have objectives which are KSA-based, or the development of learners' knowledge, skills, and attitude. And this must be considered. Same with LR development. Teaching objectives must also be considered, and this must be realized. Number 5 is the principle of simplicity. Learning resources should be simple enough so that a student can understand it and enhance his learning. As LR developer, we need to bear it in mind that LRs are for learners' enhancement activities in which these are the learning activities to be done by the learners even without the presence of the teacher. So learning activities must be simple enough for the learners to understand. That is the principle of simplicity. Now, the sixth one is the principle of relevancy and suitability. Relevant, suitable, and appropriate learning resources makes the topic easy to understand for the students. It serves the purpose of teaching in most effective manner. Now, when we develop learning resource, let's make it simple and of course relevant to the lives of our learners, that they can relate it personally, and of course suitable for learning. So again, contextualization and localization of LRs must be considered. And of course, with the contextualized, localized LRs, the principle of relevancy and suitability will be achieved. Then this next one is the principle of accuracy. Now, this principle states that learning resources should be accurate and properly maintained in order to provide better learning. When we say accurate, that means correctness or correct, right, or precise. So correctness or preciseness in choosing or developing LRs is a must for us to provide better learning. Kasi as a teacher, of course, DepEd will really, kumbaga, the main goal of DepEd is for us to provide quality education among learners. Then number 8 principle is the principle of size. Now, learning resource should be prepared during the size of a class or considering the size of the class. Example, you will be preparing a learning resource with your, shall we say, 50 learners in a class, and you're going to prepare only 25. So how are you going to deal with it? Now, it should serve the whole class, but not too small, neither too big. So in our classroom setting, of course, we know the number of learners we have, and that will be also the learning resources that we're going to prepare. I mean, the number of learning resources that we're going to prepare. Then, speaking of small and big learning materials also. Now, example of these are those teacher-made or locally made LRs, just like the small books, the big books made by our teachers. So let's consider the principle of size. Then another is the principle of availability of resources. Now, these are things to consider in selecting resources. We need to consider the financial budget. Now, there are schools, we don't have these learning materials because we cannot afford to buy it. So we need to consider the budget. Then, do we have trained teachers to explain on how are we going to use the learning resources, or the ability and skills in a teacher to handle the aid material? So learning resources can be print or non-print. We know this. And this can be cheap or expensive depending on its quality. So we have to consider financial budget. If we are provided with new learning resources, do we have trained teachers who can handle the said LR? Do we know, or are the teachers aware on how are we going to use the LRs? Or do we have the ability and skill to use it? So those are the things that you need to consider. Then another is the principle of means to an end. Means to an end. Ano yung process at ano yung kahihanatnan? Or what will be the end of what you are thinking of? So learning resources are made to help teachers in order to provide better learning. Help teachers, see? So learning resources, ginagawa natin to para matulungan ang mga guro natin in order to provide better learning, not worse learning. So, a better learning and not to treat end means in themselves. Na yung mismo yung mga guro nahihirapan because of this developed LR. So, one of the principles of learning is that learning is not necessarily an outcome of teaching, and what students learn is influenced by their existing ideas. So, hindi po natin pwedeng, kumbaga, pahirapan yung mga sarili natin. As teachers, paano mo ginawa ang learning activities mo? Paano mo ginawa ang mga learning resources para sa mga mag-aaral mo? Ikaw ba'y nahihirapan dito? Well, take note that one of the principles of learning is that learning is not necessarily an outcome of teaching. But of course, that is why we have these learning resources or the learning materials for our learners to use. Then number 11 is the principle of utilization. Utility decides the value of a thing possessed by us. A teacher should optimally utilize these resources. Now, the purpose of utilizing teaching and learning resources in class is that to assist the teacher with the presentation and transmission of educational content. Kung paano i-transmit ng guro ang educational content and the achievement of educational objectives. Paano natin ma-achieve or ma-reach yung objective po natin, while aiding the students in acquiring knowledge and profiling different abilities and values. So with the learning resources, we are aiding our learners, mga mag-aaral po natin, in acquiring knowledge, profiling different abilities, or enhancing their different abilities, and of course, their values. Another is, we have also here how public schools acquire learning resources. And we have this Department of Education in its acquisition of learning resources. Now, in schools, paano nga ba tayo nakaka-acquire ng learning resources? Now, we have 5 things, or I think 1, 2, these are things to consider, or we need to bear this in mind. We can acquire learning resources through centrally procured LRs. Now, notice the books in schools, delivered in your schools. The modules you have, the teacher's guide, and others. Any print or non-print LRs. They are centrally procured LRs. So, we can acquire learning resources with centrally procured LRs. So, meaning, these are learning resources procured by the central office, delivered to the regional office, then to the division offices, from the division to the district, and from the district to the schools. However, there are instances that learning resources, centrally procured learning resources, are delivered directly by the suppliers to the schools. Then another is donations. Now, when we say donations, this can be personal donations from anybody or any private institutions. So that is why in your learning centers or in your school learning centers, we encourage the learning resource coordinators, the LR school coordinators, to solicit books or to ask anybody for donation of books para magamit ng mga learners. Then another is harvesting of materials. One example of this is the conduct of the National Storybook Writing, wherein the Department of Education has harvested a lot of storybooks from the said storybook writing competition. At ngayon we are lucky. We have one teacher writer who is a winner of the Teodora Alonso Storybook Writing Competition nationwide. And these storybook writing winners, or these storybooks in the national level, winners in the national level, can be used by all public schools. So, harvesting of materials. Now, same also in our division. We have conducted storybook writing competition, and we have chosen, or we have selected 3 writers or best writers per category. So we have harvested 12 writers per category from kinder to grade 3. And of course, we submitted this, or the first or division winners who are considered as first in rank. Of course, their write-ups are submitted to the regional for the regional competition. But then the rest of the winners in the division are those write-ups that can be quality assured by the division, and with that, we are harvesting your outputs. So that's harvesting of materials. Then the school-based development materials, or here, these are the teacher-made or locally made learning resources. Now, in every learning area, the teachers are required to develop learning resources depending on their need. And these are the so-called school-based development of materials. Now, these school-based developed materials, they will undergo, or these LRs will undergo school QA. That's why the division is requiring you to have your school LR team with the QA team, because whatever be the LRs developed in your schools by your teachers will be quality assured by your QA team. And of course, you can make use of it. You can use it in your schools. Then if it will be submitted to the division, to the district, that will be QA'd or quality assured by the district, then by the division. So right now we are having, or we are starting to have this data bank on the learning resources by subject area. And this is our goal. So with the school-based development of materials, we can gather, we can harvest what you have in schools. Then the next is the use of LRMDS portal. The question is everybody here has access to LRMDS portal? Now, learning resource uploaded in the LR portal are quality assured already, and they are ready for use. So we are requiring all the teachers and even the non-teaching staff of DepEd Siargao to have the LR accounts, because we cannot access the LRMDS portal without our LR accounts. And we are ready, or we in the division, the LRMS section is ready to help you, to assess you, to give you technical assistance on LR, or shall we say, having the LR accounts using your DepEd accounts. Another is, or this time, let me share with you learning resource designing and its development process. How are we going to design learning resources, and what are its, or what's the process of developing learning resources? Now, there are 5 things to consider in designing or developing learning resources. The first one is we're going to conduct research on the learning resource or material requirements. So what are those requirements? Then another is to assess project risks. Then the third one is to design the LR and plan the content. And the fourth one is to develop the learning resources or the LRM. And the last one is to evaluate the design and development process. Now, speaking of conducting, we're going to conduct research on learning resource materials requirements. And this includes the following. We need to consider the ethical and legal considerations. And this would involve the copyright issues and educational value. Kasi pag gagawa tayo ng learning resources, hindi yung basta-basta na lang po tayo kumbaga mangungupya sa ready-made. Kundi we need to consider the ethical and legal considerations. Let's avoid copyright issues. Then another is, you're going to conduct research on the type of learning resource material that you're going to develop. This refers to the kind of LRs to be developed, such as modules. Now, ano nga ba talaga ang need ng mga learners natin? Are our learners need modules, learning activity sheets? What about your lesson plans, the storybooks, and others? So, we need to consider the type of learning resource material that we're going to develop. Then another is, we need to conduct research on its characteristics of likely target audience. Ano nga ba ang mga attitude ng mga target audience mo, ng mga learners mo? So do research on the end user of the said LR. Sino ba ang gagamit? Ano ba ang mga ugali nila? So, diba? So, we need to consider those. Research on the characteristics of your target audience or your target learners. Then, the learning needs of audience. Aba, syempre, this refers to the assessment needs. Now, before working on LR development, you need to know first. You need to have this, or you need to assess first the needs of the learners. Ano nga ba ang kailangan ng mga mag-aaral na to? Then, the next is learning environment. Now, research on the learning setting, the atmosphere, and the situation. So, hindi po tayo basta-basta na lang na gumawa ng learning resources without considering the learning environment. Because it is important for us to know the setting or the learning setting, the atmosphere, and the situation of our learners. Then, we have also here assess project risk or the APR. Assess. Dapat alamin natin. Now, when we say risk, this is an uncertain event or condition that has a positive or negative effect on a project's objectives. Now, take for example, if we are working or developing on a certain learning resources, it doesn't mean na ang nasa isip natin ay lahat na lang positives. So, we need to think also of its negative effect. Kung gagawa ako ng learning resource na to, kung ida-download ko ang learning resource na to, ito ba'y magagamit ko? So, what are the positive and negative effect of that particular objective? Ano ba ang pinaka-objective mo? Bakit ka nag-download ng LR na yan? Bakit ka gumawa ng LR na yan? Basically, risk is any unexpected event that can affect anything. That's for better or for worse. So, risk can affect people, it can affect processes, technology, and resources. Yan. Gagawa ka ng LR, nagagamit ng, shall we say, audio-video, gagamit ng LCD, wala ka naman nun. Walang electricity in your school. Anong gagawin mo? So, you need to assess. You need to consider those things. Now, there are things that we could do in assessing project risk. The first one, you're going to monitor and review the risk. Monitor. Then, identify the risk. Ano nga ba ang risk nito? Ano nga ba ang side effect nito? Then, determine the likelihood and consequences. Then, make decisions about whether the risk is acceptable or unacceptable. Ito yung risk, posibleng mangyayari. Ano ba? Ito ba'y okay lang or hindi okay? Acceptable or unacceptable? Now, if the decision is unacceptable, what are you going to do? Just leave it there? No. You need to treat the risk if it is unacceptable. So, those are the things that you could do or we could do in assessing project risks. So, again, if the risk is unacceptable, treat it. Do not just leave it. Then, design the LRM and plan the content. Okay? So, you have already those things. You have prepared a lot. And this time, you're going to design the learning resource material and plan out your content. So before designing the learning resource, we need to plan it out. We need to plan out. Ano nga ba ang magiging laman ng learning resource na to? So in designing, you need to identify the implications of each design. So think of the design. Ano nga ba ang implication nito? Ano ang implikasyon nito sa mga mag-aaral and for us as teachers? So, identify implications of each design. Then, based on research, generate a range of design options. Hindi yung isang design lang ng LR development ang i-consider mo. You need to generate a range of design options. Ano nga ba ang bagay para sa mga objectives na to? Ano nga ba ang bagay para sa mga learners' needs na to? Then, if you have the designed options or a range of design options, decide on the design. Okay? Kasi mayroon ka ng pinagpipilian eh. Ano nga bang design ang gusto ko? Then decide on it. Then you have decided on the design. This time, develop an outline or prototype for learning resource and confirm it with your client. Ito ba? Tama ba? Ang content ba na ganito ay talagang need or suit doon sa kliyente ko, sa mga mag-aaral ko? If it is, then write a work plan. So, hindi basta-basta. Identify the implications, generate a range of design options, you're going to decide on the design, develop an outline, then write a work plan. And the last one is, determine the breadth and depth of the proposed content. Ang kanyang lawak at gaano kalalim ang content na gusto mong ipapahiwatig or gusto mong ipalabas doon sa LR mo. So when we say breadth of learning refers to the full span of knowledge of the subject. Mayroon ka bang enough knowledge para gawin mo ang learning resource na yan? The depth of the learning resource refers to the extent as to which specific topics are focused upon. Sa pagpapalalim, kaya mo bang palalimin ang LR na yan, ang topic na yan? It should be amplified and it should be explored. So within the area of study, there will be both breadth and depth of learning, which increases a student's or that increase students' advanced knowledge. Kasi kung paano mo ipipresent ang topic mo doon sa pagpapalalim, that will increase the students' knowledge. And of course, hopefully, you want your learners to be advanced. Then here, develop the learning resource material. As we develop the LR, we must consider the following. Create content in accordance with the agreed design. So as what we have discussed, we have already agreed or you have decided on the design. Ngayon isipin mo, you're going to create content naman in accordance with your design. Ano ang dapat mong kumbaga, ano ang dapat na laman ng LR na yon? Then establish mechanism for reviewing work in progress. As you work, you need to think, you need to review while the work is in progress. Hindi yung iiwanan mo from the very beginning. You start with objectives, then what will be your succeeding activities to comply, or shall we say, to realize your objectives. So establish mechanisms for reviewing work in progress. Then review the content and the design against client requirement and relevant criteria. So think, as you develop the LR, you're going to review the content every now and then. Then finalize the output and secure approval. So once you have finalized the output, submit it to the QA team. Submit it to your subject in charge, or shall we say experts, to your school head, to the school QA team, then to the district QA team. That's for approval. Then with their suggestions, because it undergoes the quality assurance team, then you are going to modify the design or content if it is necessary. So that will be the time that you're going to integrate the suggestions given by the QA team. Then the last one is evaluate the design and development process. In evaluating the design and development process, we need to do the following. The first one is to prepare an action plan. Action plan for improvement for future projects, and identify best practices and areas for improvement. And here are the guidelines. We are now in the last topic. Guidelines in developing learning resource materials. So when we say guidelines, consider the following. First, always start with the familiar. Of course naman, di ba? So we need to start with the familiar, hindi yung estranyo, hindi yung strange tayo doon sa LR na gagawin natin, doon sa topic na gagawin natin. Then relate content to the learner's experience and context. Aba, syempre, we're going to think on its content. Ito ba'y maintindihan ng mga mag-aaral ko? Ang mga mag-aaral ko ba'y makaka-relate if I'm going to use this and my content? Then, give examples. Ba, syempre, magbigay ka ng halimbawa sa mga LRs na gagawin mo. Then, provide a bridge from one topic to the next. Hindi yung, example, lesson 1, ay walang connection yan sa lesson 2. Now, there should always be, or you will be providing bridge from one topic to the next. That is spiraling of lessons. May connection from the first topic to the next. It should always be connected with each other. So that is providing a bridge from one topic to the next. Then the next is the use of language that is closer to everyday conversation. Please do not use strange words or words which our learners cannot understand. So take note that learning resources, these are for our learners. This can be brought home and they will be working on it even without the assistance, even without the presence of the teacher. Ngayon, kung gagamit ka ng mga salitang hindi naintindihan ng mga mag-aaral, what's the use of giving them the activity? Or shall we say, the LR? So use language that is closer to everyday conversation. Then, when you construct sentences in your learning, shall we say, learning resource development, you're going to use active rather than passive statements. So in English, we have this active voice and passive voice of the verbs. Now, take for example, with the statement, changes were made by us. Is it in the active or passive voice? Of course, it's in the passive voice. Changes made by us. Now, how are we going to make it into a statement using active voice? So we would say, we made changes. That's active, huh? From changes made by us, changing it into an active or using active voice, we will say, we made changes. Then another example is that the food was prepared by the students. Again, this is in a passive voice, passive statement. Now, changing it into an active statement, we would say, the students prepared the food. So, again, use active rather than passive statements. Now, use text that is clear, text that is concise, text that is grammatically correct, and appropriate for the intended audiences. That's why in the QA, we have the content QA, language QA, the layout QA, and of course, the educational soundness. So, we need to use text which are clear, concise, and grammatically correct. Mali-mali. So, kung gagamit tayo ng mga mali-maling or grammatically wrong, shall we say, statements or sentences, ano ang matutunan ng mga mag-aaral natin? Mali-mali din. Then another is keep sentences short. Now, take note that our LRs will depend on must be suited to the age, the intellectual level of our learners. So, it is advised that when we make LRs on its content, let's keep sentences short or use short sentences. 20 words ang pinaka marami na in one sentence. Then exercise sensitivity to groups and cultures. Be sensitive. Example, mayroon kang mga halimbawa, mga sentences na gagamitin mo. Aba, be careful on the groups and the cultures of all of us, di ba? Kasi mayroong mga kultura na ito ang culture natin, pero iba sa iba. Now, take note na when we work on or when we develop learning resources, hindi yung iisipin natin na tayo lang yung makakabasa noon. Tayo lang ang makikinabang noon. So, we need to think. We need to consider. We need to exercise sensitivity. Be sensitive with the groups and cultures. So, that's why we have this social content, no? Social content. Then, of course, if you have technical words, then try to explain those technical words. Explain the technical words. Okay. And the last one, we have the visual design. Actually, this is the work of the layout artist. But of course, as LR developer, you need to consider also your design, the visual design. Now, this is one of the important things that the LR developer should consider. Here are the following items to bear in mind. The first one, provide enough space for learners' answers. Now, there are LRs that require other sheets of paper for the learners' answers. But it's nice or it's good enough if your LR, your learning resources itself, will be provided with a space or you're going to provide enough space for your learners' answers. Pero kung nagtitipid ka, ayan, example, you're making an activity sheet and then you're going to use it for another group of learners pa, eh wala kang pera. So you need to consider that one also. So that will be the time that you will be requiring answers in the learning resource itself. Pero yung iba, private schools, binabayaran kasi nila yung mga worksheets nila, yung mga activity sheets. So that's why the learners can bring it home. That will be for their copies already. Next is, use plenty of white spaces. Now, when we develop LRs, wag mong gamitin yung, kumbaga, it should be, kumbaga, double space para for the QA to make some corrections. So, you may use double spaces. And of course, the spacing of the LR developers, or shall we say statements, iba-iba kasi. Iba for the kinder and others for the higher levels, iba din yung spacing and even the font size used. Then use readable font style and size. It depends on the grade level as what I have said. Now, kinder, the font size, of course, is different from the other grade levels. And use design elements as appropriate. Now, DeepEd has an official design elements like that of the ADM modules. Then another is you're going to employ design elements that are of good quality, relevant, and instructive. So, yung mga elements that are yung maganda naman. So, that's why we have this layout or layout QA. So, we need to quality assure also as to the layout of the learning resource. Then, watch out for copyright issues. Ayan. So, when we say copyright issues, and you will know more about copyright issues in the succeeding sessions. This will be handled by our division librarian. She will be discussing on the different copyright issues and you will know more about copyright issues. So that's why, as LR developer, we need to consider copyright or we need to watch out for copyright issues. Then, exercise sensitivity to groups and cultures. Yun ang sabi ko kanina. Social content here is one of the aspects considered in doing the quality assurance. So, social content. Be sensitive as to the groups, the cultures, and even gender. Then, another is incorporate appropriate learning activities. Yung mga learning activities mo ba sa learning resource na yun, appropriate for the learners? O kaya, napakahirap naman ito. Hindi maintindihan ng ng mga kinder kids ko kasi napakataas ng standard. So, you need to incorporate, you need to use appropriate learning activities. Okay, so those are the things that we consider in developing learning resources. You have already the guidelines and the different principles and learning resources. And to end up my session, let me say thank you very much. And we have here, I borrowed a line from Benjamin Franklin, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This time, we have our next topic, the metadata, to be discussed by Mr. Reggy Asupre. Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Reggy Asupre, the Project Development Officer 2 of the Learning Resource Management section under the Curriculum Implementation Division. And today, I will discuss to you the what is metadata and how to create a metadata on your created learning material. So first, let us find out what is metadata. So metadata summarizes basic information about the data, which can make finding and working with particular instances of data easier. It is the so-called the data about the data, which means that metadata collects specific information about the learning material that you are going to create. And what are those specific information? Example of those, the author's name, the address of the author, the illustrators, the layout artist, the language, the competencies, the objectives, and so much more that I will discuss later on. And what are those examples of learning materials? We have modules, detailed lesson plan, DLL, leveled readers, poems, and so much more. So before we create a learning material, we need first to create metadata. Tandaan nyo yan. Bago tayo gumawa ng learning material, we need to create first a metadata for us to have a direction. Para hindi po tayo paliko-liko on creating a learning material. Para diretso po tayo, para guided po tayo, we need to create a metadata. Okay, guys? Okay, so let's move. So right now, I will show you the metadata that we are using in Learning Resource Management section. And this file, I will provide a link in our Facebook account so that you will have a copy of this one. So the metadata, it has 5 parts: the general, technical, educational, rights, and comments. But just disregard these comments because this is only for the quality assurance team. This is only intended for the QA team in the division office. So let's just focus on the 4 parts. The first part is the general. This over here. Under general, we need the title of the learning material. For example, we have here a storybook. So the title of the storybook is Ang Munting Handog kay Inay. That is the title. That's specific information. So the language, we have Tagalog. The keywords, it is obviously a storybook. For the description, ang kwentong ito ay nilaan para sa kindergarten at grade 1 to 3 na klase. Ito ay tungkol sa iba't ibang paraan ng pagpakita ng pagmamahal at paggalang sa pamilya at kapwa at paggamit ng mga bagay na patapon na ngunit maari pang pakinabangan. Okay, so that's the description. That is a description po yan ng learning material na ginagawa nyo. So, in this example, description ito ng Ang Munting Handog kay Inay ng storybook. For the cataloger, ito pong nilagyan po namin na red na font is fixed na po yan. Cataloger is LRMDS, Siargao po, always talaga yan. For the learning resource is actually the file na i-attach natin doon. So, in the first, kung una pa tayong gagawa ng metadata, hindi pa natin pwedeng lagyan ng learning resource. Sa last part na po natin siya pwedeng lagyan. After we finish creating the learning material, because we will going to attach the file, and we need to put the complete file name of the file. Naka-zip po siya because this file is a composition of a Word file, PDF, and a PowerPoint. Naka-zip po siya para ma-compress yung tatlong different learning resources. So, meron pong PDF na ang munting handog kainay, meron ding naka-Word, at meron ding naka-PowerPoint. That's why naka-zip po siya. If your learning material, yung LM nyo is naka-Word, so ang munting handog kainay .docs, something like that, or naka-PowerPoint .ppt or something like that. So, the primary storage for this one is digital. Dahil naka-PowerPoint, naka-PDF, and so on. So, pero, if you have cassette tape, something like that, pwede. Kung CD, pwede din DVD, or naka-print, or naka-web base. So pwede siya as your primary storage. But, for now, naka-digital siya. Dito sa resource location, always talaga siya na Department of Education, DepEd, Siargao. So, for this external resource identifier, kami na po maglalagay niyan dito sa Division Office. Care of na po yan sa amin because care of na yan ng aming librarian dahil may mga special numbers po kami intended for a certain learning materials na ipapasa nyo, isasubmit nyo dito sa Division Office. So, for the publication date, yes, the date ng pag-upload nyo. Actually, this is sa amin din to. This is for the Division Office. Pero this date, you can actually leave it blank. So sa amin din to kasi kami na yung magpapapublish going to regional office. So we are done already sa general. This is the general information that we need to get sa paggawa ng learning material. So first is the general, next then let's move sa technical part. Sa technical part, we need the file size. So we can put this information after we are done doing the learning material. So, ilagay po natin kung ano ang file size, yung ilang bytes or megabytes or gigabytes ang ating learning material. So, file type, it could be PDF, Word file, or it could be HTML, web-based, something like that. The type ng file. For the operating system, lagyan po natin ng Windows if pwede siya ma-open sa Windows. Or if pwede siyang ma-open sa Mac OS, lagyan po natin Mac OS. If pwede siyang ma-open sa Android phones, yes, lagyan po natin. Or iOS devices, mga iPhones, lagyan po natin dito. Ilagay din po natin dyan. And so on. For the software, Adobe Reader. Dahil PDF siya, so Adobe Reader. Pag nilagay nyo dyan na file type nun, MS Word, ilagay nyo Microsoft Word, something like that. Ilagay nyo dyan. For number of pages, so if pages nyo, if 10 lang, so 10 lang ilagay nyo. Bilangin nyo. All the pages, including the cover page, down to the last page. So we are done already with the technical part. So let's move to the educational part. Okay, so dito hindi na tayo mahihirapan actually. Okay, for that, okay. Okay, for the educational part, we have the material type. Curriculum po ito dahil yung ginagawa po nating mga LMs is gamit para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Pero if you are a teacher na magfo-focus ka sa sa professional development na teacher, ang ilalagay po natin dito is professional development. Pero ang focus po natin for now is for curriculum gamit ng mga bata. For educational type, K-12 po inlagay natin. For grade, kung anong specific grade ng LM ang ginagawa natin. For grade 8 ba, grade 1 to 2 or 3 ba. Then learning area, kung anong area, kung Filipino, lagay mo na Filipino 8, Filipino 9, or English 10, something like that. For content or topic, this is actually just the lesson, the title of the lesson. For content standard, you know that already, nasa CG, performance standard, nasa CG, competencies, nasa CG din yan. Makikita niyo po yan sa CG. So, hindi po mahirap. Objectives. Actually, sa objectives, iba-iba po ang objectives natin. So, iba-iba yung DLP or DLL natin. For intended users, learners, ilagay natin. For accessibility, just put none. None po dyan. For resource type, storybook. O, example ng mga ito. Ito po yung ibang example ng mga resource type, mga module, activity sheets, mga DLP, DLL, etc. But for now, we are creating storybook. So, we are done already sa educational part, and let's move sa rights. So dito na tayo yung mga writers natin para ma-acknowledge yung mga gawa nyo po. And for the rights, first sa author, who are the writers? So sino yung mga writers ng mga storybook nyo sa learning materials? Kayo po yun. So taas noon po nating ilagay ang mga pangalan natin dito. Yan, ganyan, yung mga pangalan natin. Kung ikaw ang writer, lagay mo dyan. Kung ikaw ang illustrator, lagay mo po dyan yung pangalan nyo. Ganyan. Kung ikaw din ang illustrator, dahil sobrang talino mo, lagay dyan yung pangalan mo. Ganyan. Lahat na lang. Yes, if you are talented enough that you can write, illustrate, and layout, perfect ka. Okay, so after that one, copyright, of course, yes, always copyright. For the copyright owner, fixed po ito, Department of Education. Copyright address, yung address ng DepEd sa Pasig City. Fixed din po yan. And copyright email sa BLR po, fixed din po yan. For the copyright URL, wala for now. Kung meron, kami na po mag-fill in yan once you submit that one to us. For condition of use, so dapat pwedeng gamitin, pwedeng kopyahin, at pwedeng i-print. Something like that. Just put use na pwedeng gamitin, copy na pwedeng kopyahin, at print na pwedeng i-reproduce. Okay, so that ends my presentation. I hope everybody understand my topic. But before I go, I need to have a short announcement to you guys. I have one requirement for you to get your certificate. You need to create 3 metadata. Why 3? Because in the succeeding topics, there are speakers that will require you to have an output, especially in storybook writing, DLP, and activity sheet making. So you need to create 3 metadata in those to those learning materials. So I think everything now is set. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and you have a good day. Bye. We are done with the first 2 topics this morning, and let's have lunch break. For queries and clarifications, we will be posting links in our official Facebook account, LRMDS Siargao. We will be back at exactly 1 o'clock for the next 2 topics.
SDO Siargao, kalidad na edukasyon sa tanan panahon.